What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another weekly update. So lots of exciting news to talk about this week. The first thing is the new mid-engine Corvette was spied. We only have a couple pictures of it. Just some people happened to spot it going through McDonald's drive-thru, and you can tell it's definitely the mid-engine one with the longer rear deck there and the pointier nose up front. Completely new, completely different than the C7 generation, and it looks pretty close to being ready to go, which makes the whole Corvette timeline real confusing because we're still waiting on the official ZR1 to come out, and that should be basically any auto show now, LA or Detroit here in the next month and a half, 2 months is when we should be seeing that, and maybe even sooner online. But then, this mid-engine one looks like it's basically ready to go. So I don't know. I highly doubt they're going to release them at the same time. I'm sure they'd want to drag it out a little bit more. So maybe, we'll be seeing this at the New York Auto Show in April instead, which is a little bit later on. But anyway, it looks like it's pretty far along. So exciting to see that the mid-engine Corvette is finally going to become a thing. It's been talked about for years and years and years, and finally it's looking like it's actually going to happen. So cool to see that. Mazda had some interesting teasers here for the Tokyo Motor Show coming up, in about a week or so here. And so there's some good news here, but also some not so great news. And the first thing, we'll start off with some of the good stuff. The new Mazda 3 hatchback was teased, and we got a couple pictures. It looks like a very evolutionary, styling from the current version. Very similar in a lot of ways, but looks like it's a little more swoopy and beautiful looking. And I mean, all the Mazdas are already beautiful already, and so I'm sure that's just going to improve on the already good looks and be really great. The other car they're going to show at the Tokyo Motor Show it's going to be what they're saying is going to be some kind of future design study thing. So it's basically like you remember Acura had the Precision concept, and that was just like a cool looking sedan, but it wasn't an actual sedan they were going to build. It was just showing you what the new front end's going to look like, which they then transplanted onto every other Acura you see for the 2017 and 2018 model years. It's going to be something similar to that, I think. Where Mazda's kind of showing off their new front end design, maybe some of the features for the back ends as well. But what we see from the teaser, it is basically a four-door version of the RX Vision concept, which was the awesome two-door one that everyone was hoping was a precursor to the upcoming RX-9. And now seeing this as four doors and just strictly a concept to show off design language means this is not something that's going to come to production. And it's certainly, now it's four doors, so it's no RX-9, even if it did come to production. So that's a bit of a bummer because it basically means there is no RX-9, at least coming to the Tokyo Motor Show. But don't give up hope, because remember, so Mazda, they've been filing patents and they've been working on saying, they're having rotary engines in development still, and they want to do a sports car, but then they're like, we're not doing a sports car, and it's been back and forth for years with what Mazda's official word is on this whole thing. Anyway, just recently they filed a U.S. patent for an active aero system that's on this strange drawing, but the back end of this fictitious car has a very similar back end to what you see on the RX Vision concept, the two-door one there, or what will most likely be on the four-door version here that we'll be seeing in a couple of weeks. And so that's cool that, they're showing that and that they're actually filing patents for active aero. I don't know what car in their range would be fast enough that active aero would really benefit from it. Because nothing they have is super high horsepower. I don't think anything they have is over 300 horsepower. So active aero might be a little bit much, but if it actually is, if there is some kind of actual rotary sports car in development, if some kind of hybrid powertrain or something that's super fast, active aero makes a lot of sense. So it's one of those things, why would they be working on this if it was just, for a design thing, why patent it and all that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping there is something, legitimate behind all this stuff, and this isn't all just, rumors that go nowhere. But anyway, interesting to see that. Toyota this past week, they are going to be showing off a couple of very interesting concepts here at the Tokyo Motor Show. And they already showed two of them completely here. We have a bunch of pictures that came out online. The first is the GR-HV Sports concept, which is basically a restyled Toyota 86. It's got very similar proportions, although the front nose is a little bit longer. And as you can see, it's a lot more angular and pointy and space-agey there with the way that it looks in the front. The back end also looks quite interesting there. And I kind of like it. I think the headlights could use a little more finishing and refinement, but overall it looks really, really good. And so anyway, the whole idea of this is it's a hybrid powertrain. And although the styling might be a little crazy, this could be a fairly realistic idea of what to expect for a next-gen version of the 86 and the BRZ. So as you can see, the biggest thing is it's a hybrid. They didn't give any specifics as far as details on the powertrain or what kind of hybrid system it is or what kind of engine it has. But they did show off the interior, which has what looks like a manual gear shifter with a cool little power button or starter button on top of the gear shifter. But that shifter is connected to an automatic transmission. So basically, since this is a hybrid, to maximize the efficiency, they would have it as an automatic, but you'd be able to row your own automatic gears. So it's kind of like paddle shifting or, the little slapstick gear shifters you have in cars that manually shift an automatic already. But this, it's actually going through an H pattern to do it. So maybe this is their way of saying, hey, look, even if people do have automatics, we can kind of save the manuals. Even if the clutch pedal's ditched, we can still allow you to row your own gears, even if you're just basically telling a computer to row the gear. You're not actually moving any kind of gears. It's the computer doing it for you. But, kind of a midway point, of trying to, I guess, keep the enthusiast aspect of it alive. An interesting concept, it could be the, solution everyone's been, waiting for, but who knows? It's kind of interesting, a good idea in that regard, and we'll have to wait and see, if it actually makes it to production for some kind of future vehicle, or, how the whole industry goes in the future in regards to manuals versus automatics. Anyway, so the other interesting concept they had is they showed off the TJ Cruiser concept, which looks really like it's a 15-year-old concept to me. If you look at like a mid or to early 2000s concept cars from anyone, but especially even Toyota, you'll see a lot of similarities. Like I was looking at this, I was like, is this like an old picture or something? But no, this is a brand new vehicle they're showing off here in the year 2017. It looks interesting. It's just very boxy, very kind of retro, but yeah, they said this is like it's supposed to be like a rolling toolbox on wheels kind of thing. But whatever it is, they're saying that this is actually something that could make it to production. Toyota was very specific about saying, oh, well, if we did make this, it would be front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. And if we did make this, we'd have a 4-cylinder engine plus a hybrid option if we did make this. So they like already know all these details about it, which makes us think that it is actually coming, and this is just previewing the styling for it and gauging people's reaction to the idea. But it sounds like this is basically a done deal. I mean, they've already even patented or trademarked the TJ Cruiser name here in the United States. So this is something they're seriously considering if they haven't already decided on it. And so anyway, interesting to see that. A car that was officially revealed for production here this past week was the Aston Martin DB11 Volante, which looks absolutely beautiful. Aston Martins are always pretty things, but this one in particular, a lot of times with convertibles, it gets a little chunkier in the rear and looks a little strange. This is just so sleek and slender still, and man, it's awesome. But there's a caveat. It's only available with the V8. Although the standard DB11 has the V12 and then the V8 is now a new option, the convertible is V8 only, at least for now. The way Aston Martin does a lot of special editions, and they sometimes wait a little bit before releasing higher performing versions and things like that. So I'm hoping there still is a possibility for a V12, but for right now it's V8 only. But anyway, some other specs about it here. It's got the same, 503 horsepower with the V8 as you get with the normal V8 DB11. 0 to 60 times only 0.1 seconds slower at 4.1 seconds, even though this the convertible is 334 pounds heavier than a coupe. So they really braced up the suspension and the chassis and all that, I guess. So yeah, that's a pretty crazy weight difference there. But anyway, so these are going to be starting at $216,495. And I'm sure with options and stuff, most people will be well into the 230s to 250s easily. So that's $17,500 more than a comparable V8 coupe. That's actually the same price as the V12 coupe. So you could have V12 hardtop or V8 convertible for the same money. So Aston Martin is currently taking orders, and the first ones are going to be delivered here in the spring of 2018. So very awesome to see that. Other interesting Aston Martin news is Autoblog actually sat down and interviewed Andy Palmer, who's the CEO of Aston Martin, and he's been making some big moves that, it was talked about a few months ago how they're going to be making some kind of Ferrari 488 Challenger, a mid-engine supercar. It's going to be a completely new model line for Aston Martin. And during this interview, he was talking with Autoblog, and he was describing a little bit more of what length they've gone to make sure this is going to be a really impressive car. He said that they've hired 3 key Ferrari engineers to help develop this thing. So they said they hired a guy who's he used to be the head of body structures, and another 1 or 2 guys that was the head of powertrains for the Ferrari, I think for the 488 development, actually. So he basically was like, you guys made the 488, it's amazing. I want to hire you, and now you work for me. And that's basically what happened. So I'm sure Ferrari's probably not thrilled about that, but Aston Martin is just going for it, and who cares? So it's going to compete with the 488, the Huracan, and they said even the 720S. So going to be up in that league, and they say it's going to arrive sometime around 2020 is the guess here. But they said that they're still working on like designs and stuff. They said they have like a bunch of different clay models, and they have 8 different potential design directions they can go with it. But Andy Palmer said he's leaning towards one in particular. And so sounds like they're kind of getting settled in on the styling, and then they got to work on the development and engineering of everything. So it's still a lot of work to be done here before this thing actually hits the streets. But sounds like with these guys working on it, it is going to be a very impressive car, just hearing about it, the little bit we know. So anyway, very interesting to see that. Some other British car news. Land Rover this past week announced 2 refreshes of its models, and one of them was actually announced I think 2 weeks ago, but I happened to miss it, and so I'm talking about them both now. But it's funny because they're vehicles that were spied by some of you, and you guys sent in your spy photos, and I shared those several weeks ago, and now here we go. Here's the refresh that was spied, and now we see it without the camouflage. And so anyway, the first is the standard 2018 Range Rover, the large one. So for 2018, it gets the front end that's refreshed. You have some new taillights there in the back and a new rear bumper. It's got some interior upgrades too. Basically, the interior is now brought up to speed to match the Velar with the large 2 10-inch displays, one above the other, and the full digital gauge cluster that's a little more futuristic now. And there's also going to be available 24-way adjustable seats with 25 different massage programs, including a hot stone massage function that's built into the seats there, which is pretty cool. It's got a completely redesigned cabin with more power outlets and things like that, USB jacks. So it's, it's got onboard Wi-Fi now, all that kind of stuff. It's got the same engines as before, and the same horsepower numbers, all that kind of stuff remains unchanged. But the interesting thing is they're debuting a plug-in hybrid variant for the first time ever. It's called the Range Rover P400e, and it's going to be actually a 2019 model year, so it's going to be coming a little bit later from the 2018 refreshes here. That does 398 horsepower combined, 472 pound-feet of torque, 137 mile/hour top speed, and it's got a 31-mile range, all-electric range there. So how it does this is it's got a 2-liter Ingenium 4-cylinder turbo engine, which does the standard 296 horsepower like it does in all the other vehicles, and then that's paired with a 114 horsepower electric motor. And so combined 0 to 60 is 6.4 seconds, and they didn't announce any pricing for the hybrid ones yet, but the refresh I think is roughly around the same price as the standard 2017 Land Rover. So cool to see that. And then also the 2018 Range Rover Sport was refreshed, and again that was another one that was spied by you guys, sent in, and now we see it in all its official glory here. So revised front end once again, and it's in varying trims. It looks more and less aggressive depending on which one you pick. The SVR looks really nice and aggressive now. You got some carbon fiber stuff going on there on the hood, and it looks a little more racy than before. But all the refreshed front ends look really great, and overall really nice little update there. It also gets that new infotainment system with the 2 10-inch screens like the Velar, so it also gets a plug-in hybrid version as well. So same exact powertrain. This one's called the Range Rover Sport P400e, and it says same 2-liter 4-cylinder, same 114 horsepower electric motor, and the same combined output, 398 horsepower, 472 pound-feet of torque. And so that'll actually do 0 to 60 0.1 second faster than the bigger Range Rover. It's 6.3 seconds, same 31 miles of range here. And that hybrid model, they say they gave some specifics on the release of the actual Sport. So the hybrid one's going to be coming as a 2019 model year once again, but that'll be arriving in the summer of 2018. The standard 2018 refreshed Range Rover Sports are going to be arriving early next year, so maybe 4 months or so ahead of the the hybrid one there. But anyway, a really nice refresh. I think overall they're actually fantastic changes. I mean, sometimes with refreshes it's like, does it look better than the last one? This I think is a definite improvement and just adds even better good looks. You got the new LED headlights there, and overall just a really nice exterior and interior on those, and of course they're just as capable as ever as well. So anyway, cool to see that. And for some affordable car news, The Truth About Cars this past week uncovered some NHTSA, which is National Highway and Transportation Safety, whatever. They uncovered here in those filings that, so they have to always, the car companies have to file, what their new models are going to be, the trims, the emissions, all that kind of stuff, safety. And anyway, the new filings are showing that there is going to be 2 Civic Type R models here that we're going to have available in the States. So already overseas, I think they get the stripped out version that we don't get. We get the touring model of the Civic Type R here in the States, which has all the bells and whistles, very nicely equipped. But I think in Europe and the UK, they get like a more standard version, and all the cars are built in the UK, so there's no reason why we couldn't get that version over here. And it sounds like that's the version that's coming. They're going to have a cheaper Type R, because basically with the NHTSA listings, there was one that had all the bells and whistles, and then there was one that had less equipment listed. So a cheaper Civic Type R. I mean, a Civic Type R, even at 35 grand, is a fantastic bargain. And so if it's going to be even cheaper for those who don't need all the, tech and all the infotainment and all that kind of stuff, that is going to be a heck of a deal. And so very exciting to hear that. And who knows when that's going to officially come, or, what form it's going to take. But anyway, good news there. Whatever it ends up turning out to be. But we should be hearing about that relatively soon, if it's going to be a 2018 thing. But anyway, cool to hear that. Other Honda news is, we've been hearing about this baby NSX forever, and, we've been seeing patent images showing up of a hardtop and then of a convertible, and everyone's getting all excited. They're like, well, it looks really official if it's a patent, filing and stuff, but then we never hear anything about it. Well, we now know what one of it is, at least. So basically, it just showed up in the new Gran Turismo Sport game. There's this new Honda Vision Gran Turismo, and that is what this baby NSX is. And so we have an official image there of it from the video game. And so the image was posted by Car Scoops, who found this out first. So sounds like, and there weren't any specifics even given in the game as far as what's powering this thing, or what the deal is with it as far as any kind of specifications. So must just be a video game car. But much like with the RX-9, we can keep holding on to hope a little bit, because we have to remember that the ZSX name was trademarked by Honda in Europe, I guess in this past year, and that trademark is still active. So why trademark a name if you're not going to use it? I mean, I guess they want to protect some names just in case they do want to use them down the road. But it means they're at least considering a production version of something like this, I guess, if, they're going to have the ZSX name saved for whatever reason. And to add more fuel to that fire, Australian's Honda executive, one of their executives there, says that, according to him, a $30,000 sports car is very desirable to the company. So I don't know if it's like, well, one of those things like, well, if we could make a business case for it, we'd love to do it. Or if it's just like this personal guy's like, oh, I would love to see something like that. Or if this is a hint at, hey, there might be something coming. We would love to do something like this. So I'm not sure how to really take that. But the fact that there's a trademark in effect there, and, we got some executives from Honda saying this would be a nice thing to have, gives you a little bit of hope. Again, I wouldn't hold my breath for it, but, who knows? Maybe they'll come out and surprise us. Honda has really been on a kick with awesome enthusiast offerings with the manual and the Accord, the Civic Type R now for the States, the SI, the Civic Sport hatch. Lots of fun stuff coming out of Honda. So, I wouldn't be totally shocked if something like this actually came to production. So anyway, fingers crossed for that. But another roadster that is actually coming is the 2019 BMW Z4, and we're going to hopefully be seeing the official production version here at the LA Auto Show. Fingers crossed, might be Detroit or sometime later, but hopefully not too far away. Anyway, so BMW blog uncovered some interesting tidbits about the development of the Z4 here. So we know there's going to be a bunch of different versions with 4 cylinders and with 6. So the interesting news here is about the 6-cylinder version. So it's going to be called the M4 240i. And so it's going to be using a turbo 3-liter inline 6-cylinder engine, which is great. But there's one, so I guess they found some testing logs or something. One of them's making apparently 335 horsepower, and another one's making 385 horsepower. So I'm not sure what the deal is with this. I don't know if maybe, now, you know, what they're saying here in the article is they're saying that this could be coming down to emission standards and the EU being more strict, and so us here in the States with more relaxed emissions regulations, we might get a higher performing version or something like that. It could also go the other way, and it could be that since Europe gets higher octane fuel, they're able to run a higher horsepower version than we are, and we would get the slower one. But oftentimes whenever there is something relating to emissions or fueling stuff, it's usually not that huge of a gap between 335 and 385. I mean, that's 50 horsepower. Usually it's like 10 or 15 tops. So I don't know. We'll have to, you know, see what happens with that. It also could be that potentially there's some kind of competition package for the Z4 coming. BMW officially already said there is not going to be a new Z4M. So this is basically going to be the highest performing version, maybe a competition pack with that 385. It's also possible the 385 motor could be only going in the Supra, but it's testing in the Z4 for whatever reason. That's more of a far-fetched idea of my own, but could be a possibility because we know everyone wants higher horsepower for the Supra. So maybe there you've just turned up the boost on that motor for the Supra, and you know, that might be what it runs. We don't know what's going on with the Supra motor. It could still be a Lexus motor, could be the BMW motor, who knows. But anyway, interesting to hear that. We also know there's still going to be the turbocharged 4-cylinder version, which is going to have an S20i version with 180 horsepower and 200 pound-feet of torque, and then an S30i version with 248 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. So you're going to have lots of different options here to pick from with the Z4 and most likely the Supra as well. So anyway, interesting to hear that. Also, BMW was spied this past week with an X2 that was basically completely uncamouflaged. All you have is a little bit of camo covering over the taillights, and that's about it. So, you know, BMW kind of officially revealed this thing, but it was official reveal with camo on it that was strange and from weird angles. And now, you know, this isn't an official thing. These are spy photographs, but it's basically completely uncovered, and it looks completely done. So I don't know what BMW's waiting on. Maybe they're going to debut this at the LA Auto Show, and so it'll be shown here, you know, in the not too distant future. But anyway, interesting to see that. I mean, it looks really good. It's nice and sporty and aggressive looking, and I think will fit in well with the rest of the crossovers out there, but be a little bit more sporty looking than some of them. I really like it's got that BMW badge on the C-pillar, which is a pretty cool little design touch. It's something unique and just different and daring for BMW outside of the norm. But yeah, so hopefully we'll be seeing the official reveal of that soon, but you can see most of it there with those pictures already. So anyway, cool to see that. Also, Mercedes this past week confirmed that the M256 engine, which is their brand new inline 6 turbocharged engine, which is going to be really cool. They officially confirmed that that's going to be coming to the United States. For a while, we weren't sure if we were going to get that motor in the States. Now it's confirmed we are going to be getting it. It's going to be showing up first in the 2019 Mercedes CLS 450. So the brand new next-gen CLS will be shown probably at the LA Auto Show here next month, and so we'll be seeing this new motor in that car first. And we know it does 367 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque, but I've heard of versions that are over 400 horsepower, so maybe they'll fiddle with the boost or whatever and have higher performing versions down the road as well. But anyway, very cool to hear that. Another cool Mercedes story is that it was just announced this past week that Mercedes is going to be the official vehicle supplier for the Justice League movie, which has Batman and Superman, all that kind of stuff in it. And so Bruce Wayne is going to be driving the Mercedes-AMG Vision Gran Turismo in the new Justice League movie. That's going to be Bruce Wayne's, you know, personal car, which is so fitting for Bruce Wayne, and I'm thinking that's going to be pretty sweet. I mean, the Aventador that was driven, you know, in The Dark Knight Rises was pretty awesome as well. But yeah, pretty sweet. I think that's totally fitting and a little more comic booky than, you know, the traditional supercars that he's driven in the other movies. And yeah, so I mean, but the Vision Gran Turismo Mercedes one, that one I think came out in like 2013. It's one of the older Vision Gran Turismo concepts, but it actually still looks really fantastic. And this one is actually larger than the original because Ben Affleck couldn't fit in the original one with him being, I think, like 6'3" or something like that. So they actually scaled it up and made the whole car larger so that he would fit in it, but the proportions would still be right. And so it's a larger version, and they made them obviously for movie duty, so there's probably several of them, and some of that are stunt vehicles, but they're actually driving working cars, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so very cool to see that. And another SUV that was spied was the next-gen Audi Q3. So you see the way that it looks, it's actually looking like a smaller Q8, and actually looks pretty cool, especially in the front there. In the back, it just kind of looks like a little bit of a shrunken down Q5, and very similar to the current Q3 that we already see. And so, you know, again, it's getting ready to fight that BMW X2 we just saw spied here, and all the others out there. And so that'll probably debut sometime next year. So cool to see that spied running around. Some other sadder Volkswagen Group news is it was officially announced that for Europe there, the Volkswagen Scirocco is officially discontinued. So they're not building any new ones, and they say for those that want one, there's plenty of stock around for those that want to purchase one off the lot, but they are not building any more Volkswagen Sciroccos. And I think they said they've been building them, they've been in production for like 43 years or something. So it's kind of a shame, because I think they always look super cool, and I always wished we had gotten those in the States, and we never have since, you know, like the 90s. So it's been a while, and it's a shame, but maybe they'll have some kind of new version, or, you know, change names and have something similar. But anyway, sad to see that coming to an end, because it was always a really cool little car to me. But, anyway, last story this week is Porsche this past week announced their new Passport program. Now, this is getting rolled out in Atlanta first, but will come to other places later on. So it's basically like what I was just talking about, the Volvo on-demand subscription thing, where with the new XC40 you can just kind of subscribe to one instead of leasing or owning one. And it's basically what Porsche is doing. So this is an on-demand Porsche subscription service. You get two levels of service that you have to choose from. There is the Launch and the Accelerate. So the Launch program is $2,000 a month and gives you 8 different versions of the 718 Boxster, 718 Cayman, Macan, and Cayenne. So, you know, probably just like the 718, 718S. But anyway, you get that for $2,000 a month. And it's basically, you can swap them out as much as you want. It's unlimited mileage. And it also includes insurance and maintenance and taxes. So you basically just schedule a car to show up, and you can swap them out as much as you'd like. So, I'll talk more about that in a second. There's the Accelerate program, which is $3,000 per month, and that gives you 22 different variants of the 4 models. So you get the same 4 models, but then you also get the addition of the 911 and the Panamera. So you get the higher performing versions. You'll probably eventually get like the GTS versions of the Boxster and the Cayman and all that kind of stuff. But then you also get the 911 and the Panamera and performance versions of those. So, it's just kind of interesting because, you know, like I said, it's unlimited miles, all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense when you sit down and think about it. $2,000 a month. Like, I mean, you can lease, you can easily lease like a Cayman or a Boxster for $700, maybe even $800 tops a month, you know, to lease one. And so an extra $1,200 a month to be able to swap it out with a Macan or a Cayenne, all that kind of stuff. I mean, you could technically probably pick either a Boxster or a Cayman. You could lease one of those and then lease a Macan or a Cayenne and probably still come in under $2,000 a month. So I'm not sure. The only way this kind of makes sense is if you only have like one parking space, but you got tons of money. So you'd say, oh, well, I need a Macan on the weekends to go camping in, but then I want a sports car the other weekend, and then I want a Cayenne for my daily driver. And so you do the subscription service, and they swap them out for you whenever you want. But if you have enough money to blow $2,000 a month on this, you probably have enough money to get an additional parking space instead, and then actually own the 2 cars instead of just subscribing to them, putting miles on them, getting used cars half the time. You know, they're not brand new if it's like, you know, shared with all these other people, and it's not yours, it's not your configuration, which is the whole great thing about Porsches, is configuring them to exactly what you want. So I'm struggling to see the appeal of this myself. Maybe if you can write off as a business expense, like a rental car or something, then for businessmen, maybe it would make sense. But for personal use, I don't see how this is priced to be very competitive. I don't know who would go for that at the pricing that it's currently at. But I could be totally wrong. We'll have to see what you guys think in the comments below about it, and you know, see how the program actually does for those in Atlanta. But anyway, interesting to see that. Yes, that's it for all the news this week, guys. So thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.